The final chapter of Mushoku Tensei is an epilogue taking place in the distant future, far removed from the events of Rudeus's lifetime. We follow a new protagonist in a new environment who is facing a new challenge, and as we begin the chapter, we have absolutely no idea how it relates to the main story of Mushoku Tensei. Is it a backstory for the man god? Is it somehow related to Orsted's time loop? We have no idea. But as the chapter goes on, we finally get what we've waited for 261 chapters. An explanation for Rudeus's reincarnation, and a very satisfying one at that. The epilogue follows the playback blessed child, a girl whose life is a never-ending cycle, living the same life from birth to death with negligent differences between each of her lifetimes. Her life story exemplifies fate as described in the narrative. No matter how many times she lives, no matter what actions she takes, her life always follows the same general path, and concludes with the same general ending. However, the girl also possesses a power that allows her to rewind an object's time. This makes the girl herself an object of great desire for powerful people in her country, and in the end, she always suffers. Her suffering builds and builds until she finally declares no more, someone save me, and in her following lifetime, a boy is summoned from another world. But shortly thereafter, the boy dies, and the girl who had fallen in love with him challenges fate itself to bring him back. Through this act of defiance against her eternal hell, an eternally shut-in NEET slips between two worlds, unintentionally being given a second chance at life. This previously shut-in man, whose past trauma had caged him in eternal loneliness, is encouraged to, and slowly chooses to go out and embrace his new world. This gradual but grand change in his own personal philosophy is an act that would usually be minuscule in the context of the world at large, but the ripples of his interactions end up causing the teleportation incident, a symptom of a direct assault against the weakened laws of fate in the six-faced world, resulting in the rebirth of the playback blessed child into a world where the future may no longer be set in stone. This is a uniquely interesting epilogue, as there's two ways to interpret it. You can interpret the plot literally, that would render it more of a prologue that shows how the events of Mushoku Tensei were set up. But if you focus on the subtext, it's clear that this story was perfectly placed to give a neat wrap-up to the story of Rudeus's life. First, let's start off by talking about the literal interpretation, and in particular, the lore. The epilogue is begging for us to place it in the context of what we know, though with the very limited knowledge we have of the particular future period in question, we are way out of our depth, which leads to a lot of interesting speculation and theory crafting. We hear of a war between countries, with the summoned boy Akito dying on the battlefield in the city of Roa in the Fitoa region. This is a small geographical clue that makes the kingdom of focus in the epilogue most likely what we know in the present as the Azura Kingdom. This opens up so many great questions for speculation. Who succeeds the throne in the lifetimes of the blessed child? Is it Grabel, Ariel, Second Prince Halfhouse, or someone else entirely? Perhaps it's all of them in different lifetimes, which leads to the three types of kings the blessed child observes. Why does the kingdom keep falling in the lifetime of the playback blessed child? Is it due to what Orsted said about the succession of First Prince Grabel, who leads to Azura's demise by focusing on weapon development? Or perhaps we're observing Azura amidst the Second Laplace War after his reincarnation. With the epilogue taking place in the early 500s, the timeline would almost perfectly line up. There's also the introduction of the Prodigy Magic Knight. Being the architect of the summoning formation, they feel reminiscent of Nanahoshi, though clearly that can't be the case as she's not yet been summoned and would be immediately recognized by Akito. So who is she? As impossible as it seems based on the timeline, could she be Rudeus's daughter Lara, who leaves her home in the final redundancy chapter, saying that she will return home with a boy in the distant future? Or could this just be an entirely new character, and instead, Lara is the person who creates the prophecy about the summoning of a hero, as she is the only person for a long time to have seriously studied divination at the University of Magic. These and so many other questions are fantastic seeds for thought that add a lot of intrigue to the epilogue. They make me want to keep rereading it to try and discover more subtle details that I missed, and they make the epilogue a great springboard for a potential sequel series. On the other hand, the epilogue also excels in subtext that thematically ties up Rudeus's life. There was no grand plan in Rudeus's reincarnation into this world, and without choosing to better himself, there would be no significant changes to the world at large. He would have continued to live his life in his secluded village, and everyone in the world would remain a slave to their fates. His choice to live a better life is completely his own, and as an unintended consequence, just like he wished he could have been free and taken hold of his own future in his previous life, he changes the lives of those around him by so much that he gives everyone in the world a chance to take hold of their own future stories as well. In a way, I see the epilogue as Mushoku Tensei's way of condoning those who try to better themselves. Through a second chance, a supportive environment, and a personal choice to be a better person, there is no limit to the amount of positive change a person can bestow to the world. So those are my thoughts on the epilogue and how it does a great job at melding both interesting lore and meaningful subtext. Its plot elements inspire tantalizing speculation and make the chapter a great springboard for a potential sequel series, while on the other hand, its subtext gives a cute little send-off for Rudeus's character, deserving of the title of epilogue.